So today we're back in the ADV lab evaluating some ideas for camping gear. How do you know you're in the ADV lab? Because it says ADV lab right here, duh. Today I am looking at an idea that I've been thinking about for quite some time now. Changing from sleeping bag system to quilt. And believe it or not, this is a sleeping bag that I have been using the last year as a quilt, and it has been working just fine. So today I want to talk about, number one, how I've modified this, how I've come to the realization that sleeping bags don't really fit my style anymore, and I wonder where they even came from, since I've gotten to the point now where I'm just wondering how sleeping bags evolved, because they keep you in a sack, I guess. Here's my nice little fancy Spider-Man pillow. I think I paid $10 for this thing. It's fantastic. Better than every $60 inflatable pillow I've ever had. Because you know why? Because it doesn't go flat in a few weeks. And it's $10 or less. I can't remember what I paid for it, but it's just ridiculously comfortable. It compresses pretty well. It fluffs up immediately. Now let's talk about the real issue. And first I want to talk about the sleeping bag. I have had this sleeping bag and its twins for 30 years. 30 years. And I've actually reached out to Quilt in hopes that they might send me a demo so I could do a review of their new down quilt. I started shopping and I was like, oh yeah, they've got all kinds of stuff that's down, that's approachable within my price range, under $300, because everything down is like $800 plus. Anyway, I reached out to Quilt. I've yet to hear back from them. Still holding out a little bit of hope. But this is the sleeping bag, one of the two sleeping bags I bought in the 90s, and it has been performing wonderfully ever since then. Here's my big issue with sleeping bags in general. Number one, I'm a giant. Number two, I don't really need all this foot space down here. Number three, I stopped using it. I stopped zipping myself into the bag over a year ago. And I talked about that briefly, but it's just kind of an idea that I am not zipping myself into a bag anymore because, number one, it's very uncomfortable. Number two, most of the time when I zip myself in, I only zip myself to right here. Because, here's the thing, here's the fun fact that most people don't realize. The part of the bag that you're laying on has almost no insulation value. When you squish this bag down to nothing and it's just fabric, there's no loft in here, it has almost no insulation value. So it goes from like an R30 to a R0 or R1. It goes from something to nothing. So the stuff that you're laying on has no value. That's why I started experimenting with the quilt idea. And basically with what I mean by quilt is I just sewed a foot box into here. Yeah, redneck. To keep this zipper from going all the way down. And I just pull it over me. When I crawl into the hammock, I just pull it over me and use it as a quilt. So far so good, right? Well, what I'm thinking about now is actually turning this into a real quilt. Something like you might buy online. So in other words, I'm thinking about cutting the excess bag off and keeping like maybe the top part, the full length of the top part, and I may even cut more of that off eventually. But I'm thinking about cutting off, starting maybe right here in the middle, cutting off, just having a foot box. I'll probably need more than that because I've got big feet, but say starting right here and going at an angle and cutting both sides off. That way reducing the amount that I have to get into a bag. I could probably get away with cutting off 30% of the bag. And since this thing is probably coming towards the end of life, I don't think it's a big risk. And I've got some time, winter time, where I can look at this and go, okay, this either works or not. And this is the time of year, in addition, that I would recommend everybody that is planning on going camping in the summer in the mountains or anywhere where it might get cold overnight, this is the time when the temperatures are going down low, where you can come out in your ADV lab, whether that's your backyard or a park nearby, something where you can crawl into your equipment and see if it resists the cold and the rain. This is the time to do all that, rather than waiting for your trip and then find out none of this crap that you just bought works. So that's what I'm planning on doing. I'm real curious, before I talk about other thing, I'm real curious if anybody's ever seen this done. As far as I know, I'm the first one that's ever sewn the zipper open to create a foot box. And this is a pretty huge foot box. I don't need it that big, but I wanted to know if anybody has created anything like this before. Anybody has heard of somebody cutting down a sleeping bag before? If I'm not the first one to come up with this idea, who has done it before? What was their impression? And are they still using the same device? I didn't have anything else to do today, and I needed to get out and talk about this idea and just see if anybody else has ever had this idea. And I may start cutting here in a minute, just because I've got nothing else to do, and I've got really nothing to lose. I can get another bag. I can't spend thousands of dollars. I don't have thousands of dollars to experiment with gear. And the other big thing for me, like I always say, don't test your gear in the field the first time you go out. Test it before you go out. And like I said, this is the perfect time of year to be testing your gear to see what works and what doesn't. So anyway, let me know in the comments if you know anybody that's done this before. Let me know if you've been using an underquilt and how long and what your impression is. I've been kind of blown away at how much more comfortable I am, number one, and it just confirmed what I always knew, that laying on their surface of one side of your bag is kind of pointless. I've known that for years. It gives you a little bit of insulation, but it doesn't give you the same loft. It did make me a little bit nervous to start cutting on this bag. Not so much that I was risking losing such a valuable thing. I just really like this bag, and I'm a little bit concerned that I might not be able to replace it as easily as I would like, and I want to reduce the bulk. And once I started sewing, I was like, this is not that big of a deal. And I would highly recommend that everybody that goes out into the woods learn how to sew if you don't know how to already, and at least carry a small sewing kit. If you stay out more than a weekend, you're gonna tear stuff up. And I also recommend getting some upholstery thread and an upholstery needle if you can. That way, if you tear up your stiffer materials like tank bag or anything like that, you can sew those up too and not have to spill your stuff all over the woods. Well, it seems like that took forever. And I don't know that I'm that proud of my sewing skills. It doesn't look great, but it was kind of unevenly cut. And I just wanted to get a working proof of concept together to see if this is going to work for me. I don't know if this foot box is going to be big enough, but it's a foot box. I think I can get my feet in there. Maybe it's just deceptive. It looks kind of lopsided. I was shooting for 30% reduction in mass. The weight is not, it's really, sleeping bags are 2-3 pounds, 4 pounds maybe for a big heavy one. I don't know. I'm just guessing most sleeping bags nowadays are 2 to 3 pounds. That's not a lot of weight, but that's a pretty significant amount of bulk that's not really compressible. That's about as far as I can compress this down. So now the only other thing I've got in my mind is down. Is down a solution? If this is not going to take me where I want to go. Really what I would like to have is a 25-degree bag that's that's only this big or a little bit bigger than this. That's really what I would like, is something that is really warm and flexible. It's something that will be good at 60 degrees and 25 degrees. That's what I want. Something twice that size. I don't know that it's out there, but yeah, that's the first step, I guess. All right, so let's talk about performance. I've spent a couple of nights in this thing, And so far, it's perfectly comfortable. I think maybe what I want to do is maybe sew this foot box up a little bit higher. That way I'm not, it's going to be harder to get in and out of, but I think it's probably going to be better for me in the long term. And this may be my solution. It's not greatly reduced. I'd say 15 to 20%. I was going for 30% reduction in bulk. Weight's not that big of an issue. I mean, it's still maybe a couple of pounds. I don't know, 2.5 pounds. But the good news about this bag is I know it. I know it very well. I know this bag because I've been sleeping in it for 30 years. I know this bag. I know what the limits are. I know my comfort level. I know it works for almost everything that I want to do. Before I cut that down and slept in it, I use it in the dojo and it's fine. I'm going to sleep here. The temps are going down here at the end of the week. Lots of rain, colder temperatures. So I'm going to make sure that it's working. So here's my evolution as far as bags. I wanted something warmer. I think initially it was warmer. Yeah, I wanted something to camp in that was warmer, but you know, I live practically almost in nature year round anyway. The dojo, I live in the dojo and it gets cold in there and I don't sleep with the heat on. So I thought, man, it would be nice to have a really nice warm electric blanket when I'm plugged in. But what if I'm not? So I thought, well, I'll just get one of these and see if maybe this will be the thing that I carry. And this is a Big Agnes mummy bag, which I discovered really quickly. Even though this is made for giants, it's just too confining. My chest is almost as wide as I am tall, so I get in there and I feel trapped, and I'm kind of mildly claustrophobic anyway, and the foot box was never a problem. So this has got a small foot box, so basically what I started doing is just using this like a quilt. I realized really quickly this is nice and warm and toasty, and it's got a foot box in the bottom, so it doesn't zip all the way open and leave you with your feet dangling out freezing. I think that's when I started migrating to, okay, if I can use this as a top quilt, maybe I can use my other bag as a top quilt too. And I sewed the zipper up so it won't go down and zip all the way out. And I haven't zipped it up since. I have not zipped that sleeping bag up one time since I did that. And that's been over a year. Do not be afraid to modify your own gear. Just be willing to test it out and make sure it performs like you hope it will. That's what I do every winter before I go out. I test all my gear, make sure it's going to function correctly, and that's what I would encourage you to do too. I also filmed myself setting up this hammock, so you'll see that coming up. In addition to the 12 reasons why you should consider hammock camping, and the biggest reason is the more comfortable you are in the woods, the longer you will stay and the better time you will have. So stop being a savage like all those other ground dwellers and elevate your camping experience. That's coming up next time. See you then.